It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 416. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Range not satisfiable.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
I would like to offer my support and sympathy to John Mastodon in this trying time.
Oh, poor John Mastodon.
Poor John Mastodon, founder of Mastodon.
Oh my god. That meme has been so amazing. I've followed this user that's gone by different things over the years and is now duped at I don't even remember what instance she's on now. But my feed has been nonstop John Mastodon memes.
I feel like hearing it out loud, there's probably some John Madden crossover memes potential there.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, basically for anybody that has no idea what we're talking about, the muskrat killed the Join Mastodon account this week and is also filtering out anytime anybody puts a link to Mastodon in through the official Twitter client, but not TweetDeck.
Yeah. People have found so many ways around it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's madness.
A mess.
Yeah, no, that's.
I mean, this was after he decided to suspend a bunch of journalists that were critical of him.
Which has caused yet another mass migration this week, which is causing the servers to struggle a little bit. But, that is life on the Fediverse until things settle out. And every time they settle out, the muskrat does something dumb again, causing another group to drop. So,
So my hope here is that eventually the threat of like Tumblr federating gets made real, and like the default Fediverse becomes Tumblr, which has the backing of a corporation that can actually support that infrastructure.
Right. And I mean, there's a lot of sustainable servers, but like they're sustainable for, I don't know, like 50,000 users, 100,000 users. They're not sustainable for millions of users. So Tumblr is going to be huge. And like, maybe this is naive of me, but like, it would be lovely if other people decided to federate as well. And you just didn't have to give a shit about what platform you were actually on. And you can continue to follow all the things.
I think. Go ahead.
I think that people are waiting to see if this works for Tumblr. Then a bunch of people are going to take this a lot more seriously very quickly.
Yeah,
seems
I
likely.
think so too. And having basically Automatic, the folks behind WordPress, on this project would be a win for legitimacy. Because let's be fair, Gargon, the dude who runs the flagship instances, is not a great spokesperson for this concept. Anyway, at unintended catch up on Twitter or John Mastodon. Okay, so we got a bunch of topics that got bounced around a little bit. 5 years to find a foot pedal.
Yeah. So I am
like, I remember when this journey started. Like, I remember Googling trying to find one too.
We have talked about it on this podcast years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
I admit that the rise of streamers, I am forced to admit that the rise of streamers has resulted in at least a good thing.
Come on.
We're helping?
And by that I really mean like Twitch personalities, like influencer types.
The type of person that is able to fund the existence of a company like Elgato.
Yes. Because here's how this started. Hollow Knight is a great game in a variety of ways, and has one of the most questionable device input schemas of any game I've seen anywhere.
I hear Elite Dangerous gives it a run for its money, but that's not good company.
Here's the thing. I've dealt with Elite Dangerous's particular brand of nonsense, and the difference for Elite Dangerous is that it understands that people might have more than one input device. It is a game fundamentally built on the idea that people might have more than one input device.
It just gets mad if you have different input devices than the last time.
Yes. Hollow Knight does not. I was unable to play, I played all of Hollow Knight recently, replayed all of Hollow Knight recently, now that mods exist to remove some of my frustrations with it. And I played it exclusively on the Steam Deck because I couldn't get it to work on my PC. And it took a really long time to figure out, because I wanted to try some of this randomizer stuff and so on and so forth. And it took me a really long time to figure out what was going on. And what was going on was that my controller was having trouble being recognized. Like, it would accept inputs sometimes, and for like 10 seconds of gameplay or so, which is madness. That
seems problematic.
It's super problematic in terms of actually functioning, and also just weird. And so I went down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what was going on with it, and finally figured it out. Hollow Knight, and along with this, one of the reasons that I want to do this is because I need to be able to push to talk. I could get it to work if I shut down all of my input control stuff. So no Joyda key, no ReWASD, nothing. If I turn off all of that, then I could make the controller work.
Sometimes.
But that mostly means that my joysticks are not useful. I have to start and end all of this software if I ever play the game. I have to turn it on for everything else that I run. Like, it's not really tenable. And so it was like, okay, what else can I do? Oh, wait, maybe this is just a weird thing with games. Maybe my controller is weird. I don't know. But long story short, the thing that I'm missing is push to talk. And it turns out that there are foot pedals now that let you turn on push to talk, that you can like map to a key to be push to talk. And you'd think this would be simple, but it didn't exist that long ago.
No, and it's still something that now that you figure this out, I need to get all of the details, because like I want to play lots of games with controller, and ideally I would like to have a button either on the controller or a foot pedal that I can use as a push to talk, so I can talk while I'm playing games, rather than trying to find the least used button I can bind to push to talk, and then suddenly like, hey, every time I want to do a push to talk, I have to open up my map in Hollow Knight.
Yeah, and what I've been using for this is an Xbox Elite controller, which I find great, but is also has some design decisions.
That's one way to put it.
Like, it is a controller designed for a certain type of user that fits my uses, but definitely not Brian's.
Alas. I need a D-pad.
Yeah, it has an awful D-pad. Like, just a phenomenally bad D-pad.
I don't use the D-pad for anything, but it's not a good D-pad.
It also has some quality issues if you've had it for long enough. Mine is drifting a lot. It's the 6.
Yep.
And I feel like for as expensive as that controller is, it really shouldn't have that problem.
I agree. I have heard that the second gen is much, much better about this.
I have a second gen and it seems fine.
I've heard that the second gen is much, much better about this, and I have possibly foolishly sprung for a second gen to replace my first gen. Additional bonus, I can customize all the colors on it.
I want to say Kinky also sells Holophx Switch replacements for the Xbox Elite, maybe?
That is something I would want to look into, I think.
Yeah, like I know they sell them for a lot of different joysticks, and I want to say Xbox Elite is one of them. They basically just figured out how to manufacture them reasonably and are now making them for the Steam Deck and replacements for the Pro controller on the Switch, and crack it open and put a Hall effects sensor in it and no longer have joystick drift.
Yeah.
But depending on the controller, that may involve soldering.
Hooray.
I don't think it would on an Xbox controller. I have no idea. I haven't actually opened up the thing.
I think they probably just snap into place, maybe.
I know it doesn't on the Switch because I've opened that plenty of times now.
So does Elgato just now sell foot pedals?
So yeah, Elgato sells a foot pedal.
They sell an extremely nice but kind of expensive foot pedal.
Yeah. And I am here to tell you, I'm currently recording this podcast with my foot as my push to talk button. I'm here to tell you that as long as you don't mind putting a bit of pressure on the pedal, which if you're me and have a tendency to put basically no pressure on, like the minimum possible amount of pressure to activate a physical piece of hardware you own, it's a little bit of an adjustment. But if you are basically any other human being, you won't notice it.
On a scale of like how much pressure are we talking compared to the stock foot pedal from Rock Band?
Less.
Okay.
Like bear in mind that, like, just so that my bias is clear, I find almost every mechanical keyboard to require me to put too much pressure on keys for my comfort. So if you're a normal human being, you'll be like, I don't know what Tam's talking about. These pedals just do what they do what they're supposed to right off the bat. Anyway,
I might have a keyboard I need to give to you.
I am on record as actually enjoying those projected light keyboards.
I might have a keyboard I need to give to you.
Yeah, no, I am a button masher.
But yes, the Elgato, which I refuse to say with the accent for a variety of reasons, pedal was literally plug in, install their software, set a keybind, works. Also broke Hollow Knight, I might add. For anybody who happens to have the same problem I did with Hollow Knight and has read through the probably 50 to 100 Reddit threads where people talk about the problem, but almost nobody can figure it out, and the same 3 non-functional solutions are given. Here's the issue. Hollow Knight has a input recognition DLL, basically. The thing that it uses to know what device it should listen to. And it only accepts a specific not signed variables, but specific variable names as acceptable inputs. So if for any reason you have an input device that isn't hard-coded into their DLL with the proper name that they're using, it won't work. Which means that Windows, which will override, which for its own largely sensible reasons, will rename inputs if you have more than one, like, I don't know, a controller and joysticks, will just completely break Hollow Knight. Because Hollow Knight will be like, its system is designed such that if it does not recognize the name, it will assume that it's an invalid input. So, hacking the DLL, by which I mean replacing its long list of accepted things with just a return 1 line, worked fine.
Just accept the inputs.
Yep. Also, if you're a game developer, consider using X input. It just works.
It's there. Just use it.
It does exist for a reason.
Microsoft invented it in 2006. It has been wonderful. Please use it.
If it's good enough for most fighting games, even competitive ones, it's probably good enough for you. Like, not to put too fine a point on it, but
that said, I do at least appreciate direct input support from almost everything nowadays, because PS4 controllers aren't X input.
It's fair. Mostly
But-
what I'm saying is don't.
But
homebrew
also
your own
Steam
stuff.
just
don't
handles that
homebrew
for
it.
you these days.
Steam can just handle it for you. Yes.
Yes, also fair.
Transistor was the first game I played that handled it natively.
Yeah, you don't need to roll your own, is what I'm getting at.
I will say, so one of the things, did we figure out, is it because of the flight sticks that it kept happening to you?
I mean, among other things, it's just anytime that there's an input device that isn't an active input device that it fields an input from that isn't a mouse and keyboard, it just it basically just turns everything that isn't the mouse and keyboard off. So in my case, it was flight sticks. Any analog input.
I was about to say, because the thing that I'm like trying to understand is like this is a thing that like very frustrating for you, and like I have not. I know there are other people on the internet, but it does not seem terribly common, a terribly common occurrence, and so that's where I was like just trying to figure out what was actually root cause here.
Yeah, root cause was multiple devices with analog inputs.
Okay.
And admittedly, there's relatively few situations in which you're going to have multiple devices with analog inputs.
It does make me wonder if it would have failed if I'd still had my old Logitech G13 or whatever.
Quite probably.
But yes, foot pedal, very cool. I'm gonna need to pick this up just because it's push to talk is like I don't trust myself to use the
Voice activation.
voice activation.
Yeah.
There's too much other noise.
Yep. That's I mean, that's totally my approach.
Well, and for years they've sold USB foot pedals for like transcriptionists, but like I've tried to use one of those and they do not work for this purpose.
No,
They have gotten better.
I tried one several years ago now,
Me
and
too.
it was not a fun time.
Yeah. No, I mean this is something like 5 years in the making is definitely a thing. I've been legitimately looking for a solution like this for a long time, and you can probably get it cheaper than I did. But I have spent more on foot pedals that didn't work than I did on this single Elgato thing that worked immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like that's always been the problem of like I want to play something and hang out on voice chat, but also use a controller. And like I had even used one of those stupid Bluetooth camera dongles that you can use to like press a button and like take a picture, and had taped it to the back of the controller, and like that kind of worked.
I remember you mentioning that.
But not really. Like, it didn't really work.
I am curious, how well has anyone tested like finding a good setup for TeamSpeak on deck?
I've not tried yet.
It's
I mean, there is a native Linux client for TeamSpeak, so in theory you could just use it.
Yeah, but then like okay,
You would have to launch
set
your
up a
games
push
in
to
desktop
talk
mode.
and
Yeah, you would have to launch your games in desktop mode because,
yeah.
as far as I know, there's no way on the Steam Deck to have something stay resident in the background while a game is in quote-unquote deck mode. So you'd have to shell out into desktop mode, launch TeamSpeak, then launch your game.
I haven't worked on putting it together because I haven't wanted to deal with the Bluetooth headset part, which is I think what you'd need because the native microphone on the deck is not good. Which I mean shouldn't be a surprise, but
well, or
I'm surprised it has a native microphone. Well, I guess I'd have to have one, but yeah.
I think also like if you had one of those USB-C dongles that allows you to plug a headset into that would probably work.
Actually, come to think of it, does it have like a normal headphone jack?
I think it does.
Oh, I'd have to look. Yeah, it has a 4-pole 3.5 millimeter audio jack. So
the same type you would have on an old phone for input and output.
Right. Yep. And a lot of laptops have switched to a 4-pole instead of 2 separate jacks.
Yeah, it's my laptop has as well. So
in theory, if you have a newer headset that's got the 4-pole design, it should work. And what I mean by 4-pole for any of our listeners that have no clue what I'm talking about, it'll have 3 rings on the plug instead of 2 rings. Since we're talking about Steam Deck anyway, I'm going to bounce the order around a little bit. 2D games on Steam Deck.
Oh man.
Ghost Song and Salt and Sanctuary.
Yeah, so I'd mentioned playing Hollow Knight on Steam Deck. I really, really, really like playing 2D games, especially 2D platformers and JRPGs on handheld devices. Like, it's just a joy. And so I went, after beating Hollow Knight, I went looking at other other similar games that I could play, and came across a bunch. And it was interesting. It's been interesting seeing how many things have popped up in that vein, and then which have actually said, like, how many people are having the same kind of thing I am and being like, oh yeah, Steam Deck is great for playing this exact kind of game. Let's get on it. And yeah, there's a lot. The two that I tried recently are there's a game called Ghost Song and a game called Salt and Sanctuary. Salt and Sanctuary came really highly recommended, and Ghost Song popped up in my recommendations. I've only played them on deck, and there's some limitations to playing them on deck just because it's a handheld. So hope you don't need a mouse and keyboard, for example. Ghost Song I wish I liked more.
Ghost Song seems like such a cool premise.
It's a cool premise. It's got, honestly, a delightful kind of cyber organic blend. You know, like, you're a robot, but you're not. You're like a robot, but you're more like the robots from Stray. But like, it's really important to get the basics right. There's a game, or a there's a thing that I've seen that's like, hey, make sure, like, if you're gonna make a game, go through and figure out all of the boring parts. You know, navigating a menu, loading a save. You know, just because all of that stuff matters. And Ghost Song gets some, like, for me, got some basic movement and inputs wrong. And it's kind of frustrating to see, because it would be so good if it didn't have this problem. But it's like, you move a little bit too slowly. The, like, camera view is a little bit wrong. And it's done the, for me, cardinal sin of, you have a gun. In order to aim that gun up and down, you must stand still. You have to hold a toggle and stand still. And like, half of the first enemies you fight are shorter than your gun height, your gun baseline height.
They do, or they are aware of Super Metroid, right? Like,
yeah. This is
Right?
a solved problem.
Right. This is exactly my issue. Like, we figured this out. We figured this out a while back. But no, here we are. And then Salt and Sanctuary would really, really like you to get excited about the fact that it's just straight up Dark Souls.
did you ever play Blasphemous?
I didn't. I heard that I've heard people talk about it, but I haven't played it myself.
That is the game that comes to mind when I think 2D Dark Souls. So I was interested to see how this compares.
I mean, when you die, it goes black, and there is a slowly growing, brightly colored Gothic font, obliterated.
That's why I asked if you play Blasphemous, because it does very, very, like, it is.
Yeah, that sounds
trying
like
to,
blasphemous.
Yeah.
Like, it asks you to select a class off the bat with no information. I mean, it's, yeah. But, and
yeah. More than one game can do this.
Yes. I believe that it's very similar. It's not bad. It is a little clunky, but it's clunky in the way that I would expect a 2D Souls game to be. It's clunky in a way that is deliberate more than questionable controls.
Like Monster Hunter, Hyper Light Drifter, you commit to your actions.
Yes. I think that it did not learn some of the correct lessons from I think that it missed some of the important lessons that it should have learned from games like Souls, especially the later ones, where they're like, okay, we should make things actually somewhat approachable in the first bit, so that you don't like die and then say, hey, it's actually better for me to start over than continue playing, just because that's not a great experience. But it was interesting. It's been interesting so far. You're just like, I'm hurting for a 2D platformer, and also I want challenge. I want something challenging, but I don't want it to be about like necessarily high key platforming. I want to try something different.
I feel like I am looking for more platformy games of that nature, and that's what I really like about Hollow Knight, for example, is the focus on the platforming skills and that movement.
And there's a bit of that here.
It makes me tempted to go back and play more Messenger.
I don't remember if you played Dust Force or not.
I don't think I've played enough of it, but yeah, I should give that a shot too, now that I'm remembering what I've seen of it.
I mean, it has levels that aren't called Giga Difficult, but that is the level everyone wants to show off.
Giga Difficult. Cool. I'll have to check this out.
So another thing that's happened this week is there's been some more play of Path of Exile's Forbidden Sanctum League.
Hey.
I think this league hit at a bad time for a lot of people.
Oh God, yeah.
So like Tam is just now getting in. Grace really didn't get to play last week.
Nope.
I think I'm the only one who's made like quote unquote significant progress. I'm kind of teetering on the edge of yellow and red maps.
I am in the second half of the story.
I'm in the second act, and I feel like I'm making significant progress.
I'm in Act 10, working my way towards Kitava.
Yeah. So I don't love the league mechanic, but like that's fine because all of the stuff other than the league mechanic is significantly improved from the last league. It feels like maybe they learned some lessons about what makes, gameplay in this game fun.
They finally realized Arch Nemesis is bad, and it should feel bad.
It's funny because there are still some absolutely killer rares, but you can unsee them and understand what they do now.
Right. Yeah, it's very clearly explained what killed you as far as like, this is this mechanic, this does this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like that feels a lot better. Also, just sustain in the end game is so much better than it was. Like I get a significant number of maps without me doing anything fiddly to try and get maps to drop. I get a decent amount of alchemy so that I can turn those maps into yellows. And then I'm seeing way more scarabs than I ever saw before, and that's because they put rusted scarabs on just kind of the common loot tables. So
Yep.
you can now not only run maps, but also like do things with them to add a little bit more fun to the mechanics.
You can see mechanics without having to spec stream of consciousness on your atlas.
Yeah. So just that alone is so much more enjoyable than it was before. I will say like I'm getting a lot of maps, but it feels like it's a little harder for me to get the exact maps I need. But then again, I don't have any of the preference slots open. But I don't know, like I think the entire mapping experience feels better this time. And there's way fewer occasions where like I'm just trucking along, feeling invulnerable, and then I just die.
I think a lot of that is due to your choice
Well,
from
yeah.
a much tankier build from a creator who likes dying not at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's part of it. Righteous Fire is just kind of a great build. But also
and like, Pox hit like level 90 something without dying. Like he does not like dying.
Yeah, I don't die very often.
Like, well, I guess I fell over here in innocence. Whatever, it's fine.
I didn't die to any of the act bosses. Like I one-shot every single one of them.
Not dying. What a novel idea.
It's pretty nice.
I mean, it's definitely not my style.
Defenses, 6 portals.
Yeah.
What's freaking awesome though is like like there's mechanics that I struggled with before that are just super easy with Righteous Fire. Anything that required me to stand still for a while was just not doable on the Storm brand I was playing. But yeah, Righteous Fire is stupid. It's my kind of stupid.
What? So is Righteous Fire like give you a lot of deep? Like, why is this a good skill?
Okay, so
Righteous Fire is a skill that creates a fire aura around you that burns you for 90% of your health in fire damage per second and deals this damage to all enemies around you.
Yeah, you basically light yourself on fire, but you manage that by investing so heavily in regen that it doesn't really do anything to you.
You invest heavily in regen, you invest heavily in fire resist, you invest heavily in other defenses as well. Armor works against elemental damage if you're a barbarian and have that specific talent or whatever, Juggernaut.
Yeah, so it's a bad ideas class, but it's really fun when it works. And you also have things that like strip elemental resistances. Like you put that on your movement ability. So you can just
you
zip
can
around.
anyway.
Yeah, you just zip around and debuff stuff while you're going and it melts around you.
Where it falls down a little bit, more than a little bit really, is its single target damage is not great compared to a lot of other meta skills, which is why you take Fire Trap as a supplemental damage source. You can theoretically take several other things, but Fire Trap is used for some pretty good reasons.
Because Fire Trap ends up scaling with a lot of the things that you're using to scale Righteous Fire.
If you like taking risks, Scorching Ray, I believe, scales with all of the same things, but requires you to be kind of close and stand still.
So the idea is that this is a naturally high damage ability that is theoretically risky because it sets you take the damage too, but you spend your entire build mitigating that damage.
Basically.
Over half of my build is defenses, and the other half is scaling fire damage over time. Like, you kind of have to 100% commit to this notion, but it's dumb and it works. And what's weird, though, is usually Grinding Gear Games nerfs popular builds on purpose.
They have nerfed this build a number of times.
But, like, it's still extremely powerful, and it seems really good as a Juggernaut.
I guess that's the other thing. They nerfed Inquisitor this patch, which was the class to do on it.
Yeah.
Well, more specifically, they nerfed a specific thing that was giving them a lot of survivability, which is sad because I really liked the old man.
And so this patch, I'm a trickster.
Class with significantly better sense of humor.
Indeed. I don't really like the old man. I'm actually playing a totem build on the Templar right now, but the Templar is so serious all the time. The Shadow is much more amusing.
I made a mistake and played the Duelist first and then the Witch, and they are much funnier than several of the other characters, although the Shadow is decent.
Yeah, Marauder is not humorous at all.
No.
Also serious all the time, but in a less grating way than the Templar to me.
Gonna tell you a lot about Kaum.
I did kind of forget how sort of miserable your first character in a league is.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have a ton to work with at start, yes.
No.
I
It continues to be one of my few frustrations with this game is that there are a lot of really, really fun ways to play it. And in order to get to those fun ways to play it, you have to go through just absolutely tedious nonsense.
That's another positive about this build with RF is it was the smoothest league start I've ever had. Like, admittedly, it involved me learning to do skill shots in order to take things out, but like once I got used to that, it was fine.
So I actually took some generalized lessons from that, which is, one, if you are starting a spell skill, there is a recipe for flat damage to spells.
Yep.
Flat elemental damage to spells.
It's really easy. Everyone should
Exceedingly
do this
useful to
thing.
know. And I did not know it before this league. Because you get increased spell damage from the skill tree, but getting extra flat damage does wonders when you were like level nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at 8 and 16 and I think 21, you can
20.
just, or 20, you can just make new ones of these that are significantly higher damage.
Yeah. I mean, you need stuff to do that, and you have no stuff as a first league
You
character.
do, but what you need is alterations. So if you just pick up and sell unidentified stuff, you can get those.
Yep.
I mean, how many alterations are we talking? I've picked up and sold everything I
2.
have, and I have like
You need 2.
orbs.
Yes.
Yeah. Having picked up and sold everything from up to level 9, I have 3 of those.
I mean, that's about what I had, but I only needed 2.
That's fair. Mostly, I just think that this game could very easily cut like anywhere between 4 and 20 levels off of the level requirements of certain skills, and would not suffer for it.
Well,
I don't think that will
or
ever
this-
happen because there's a whole community around racing in this game.
Yeah, I was just
No,
gonna
oh my
say
God,
that.
That's
but
not
the-
actually why I think that. There is definitely a complexity barrier for certain skills. They want to introduce you to simpler stuff first,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
because
Agree
like
with that.
this game is complex.
This
Yes.
game is so complex.
Completely agreed there.
But I do think they could introduce you to some of the very important, very nice skills before level 12.
Yes.
Yep. 12 is the level that you just get a lot of stuff.
I also think that they could make the early part of the game, like they could probably stand to nerf a bit of the early part of the game.
Yes.
Oh, but wait, they've made it harder since launch.
No,
I know, and I don't think that's correct.
That's incorrect. The early part of this game should be much easier. It should literally fall over if you know what you're doing.
It does. Like it does.
It doesn't
Yeah,
fall over enough.
I can now get through Hillick without taking a single hit.
I mean,
Because Hillick, like, once you know what he's doing, he's got very telegraphed moves. But again, that only makes sense once you've been through the game.
You should
like-
be able to face tank Hillick.
Yeah, no, and Hillick absolutely murders most people.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did me. Like,
Yeah,
like
that's-
so many times.
I wonder how many people stopped this game after fighting Hillick.
I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely did.
I did
at
the first
least
time.
one of the times that I tried this game.
Yep.
yeah.
Like, that's a bad design.
I would agree. Like this is. I'm not saying I disagree with your assessment, but I also know the company that makes this game. They're never going to do that, which like sucks, and it'll never
Maybe
really.
they should rethink it when they get around to making PoE 2.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
they'll never reach like a broad audience with the way it is now.
Well, it's one of those things where if it added something useful to the game, I would have a different opinion of it. But it really doesn't. It's not. It's like it doesn't add. It doesn't make the like. There's nothing that makes the game better about making it unnecessarily slow and painful for the first 12 levels.
But the vision.
Vision isn't real. Speaking as a game developer, Vision is not real.
For a second, I thought you were going to be talking about EverQuest and or WoW and or Guild Wars.
I mean, these are all times when we learned that was a bad idea.
Yeah, like I mean, and lest my Twitter strike through Mastodon mentions blow up because oh no, game dev says terrible things about Vision. Like Vision is a direction so you can get everybody on the same page. And once everyone is on the same page, the vision almost always needs to change once you like actually test it out in a real place. And it needs to adapt, especially for a game with a lifespan of more than like a 6-month mobile game. It needs to adapt frequently.
I mean, novels get edited for a reason. Just saying.
Right.
Like nobody
Yep.
sets out with an idea that's perfect from day one.
Yeah, people set out with an idea that works reasonably well as a prototype. And then you figure out what you're doing. But I mean, there have been games that have been out for a decade or more that have to like fully rethink how they're doing certain things
Mhm.
because that just isn't that just doesn't reflect reality for them anymore. Sometimes stuff changes. Anyway, auteur game development is dumb.
Yes.
I mean, I will say, like, it feels like this league, they have learned some things from the last league.
They have learned some things. They still have not learned that you need to welcome players into your game at least a little bit.
Mhm.
No, that's
Yeah.
The other thing is like hearing Chris Wilson talk about the passive tree. Like you kill Hillock, you see the passive tree for the first time, and he talks about like this game is complex enough that actually needs to serve as like a baseline check of will this scare people off? Maybe this isn't the right game for them, and that seems not great.
No, that's incredibly. That to me is admitting defeat in teaching people how to play your game,
Yeah,
which you shouldn't do.
Well, they like the ultimate answer is they expect all of the teaching other players how to play this game to be handled by other players. And other players are not good necessarily at teaching people how to play this game.
Yeah.
I mean, other players are generally not great at teaching players how to play the game.
Well, in particular, any player that has been playing the game long enough and is
Yup.
interested enough to want to teach other people how to play the game doesn't remember what it's like to be a new player anymore.
Correct.
right. That's the problem that I had when I first attempted to start following guides. Is like Pox is an amazing guide maker. Like
yeah, but not
hands
everyone's
down.
that good.
Nobody else is that good. No one else is that good. Like Zizaran is a great streamer and a great YouTuber, but like skips over so many concepts that he assumes everyone understands.
This is the person who made that YouTube video for the charge build I'm playing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that sure feels accurate.
Yeah, no, like in
he's not the person who made the written guide, but the written guide is tuned toward racers, so it's even worse.
Yeah, I was gonna say this written guide is terrible.
Like
It's
in
tuned
gen-
toward people who want to get to killing bosses as fast as possible at
Mhm.
the start of a league. So it it makes sure to say you need to save 2 orbs of transmutation for Act 3 so you can buy this thing. Because does it say how you get them? No.
No, and none of them ever talk about like Pox is the first time who's ever explained the flat spell damage recipes.
Yes, that is extremely important to know if you are starting a spellcaster.
Right.
And I've never knew it before now.
Nope. And since then, knowing that exists, I found a website that has all of them listed out. It's kind of a sketchy website because they sell RMT.
I mean, it's also listed on the wiki.
Yeah, for the vendor recipes, yeah.
But you have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the thing that always, like, this is a thing that game devs should understand, and players never do. Your game being exclusive is bad.
Yes.
Like, you being exclusivist about who plays your game because you want to be like, oh, we're so hardcore or whatever, like, that's bad. You want as many people playing your game as possible. Always. Your game is not better for having fewer players.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so one of the things that I am known for is trying to recruit people to do whatever nonsense I'm doing. This is a game I have actively tried to shy people away from. Just hands down. Like I have lost some of my sanity at understanding concepts in this game. I have picked up the book in a Cthulhu game and read it. And now I am mad. And like, now that I am, it's great. I enjoy the hell out of this game. But also, you're going to lose part of your soul in figuring this out.
Yeah, and like it's gonna be very frustrating, the process of figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, it's either going to be frustrating. It's going to be one of two things. Like, if you are the kind of person who enjoys tinkering and is okay with coming out with something that's bad because you learned a bunch of stuff, you're probably okay. I mean, that's what I did. But if you don't like tinkering and you don't like not winning, it's going to be real frustrating.
I enjoy the puzzle this game represents now, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I and that long time, I feel like for a game that is supposed to be about tinkering, this game does not respect my time. Because to tinker means, oh, I tinker for like literally 12 hours before I find out whether the results of my tinkering are good or bad.
Yeah, and if they're bad, well, that character's a loss. You should just start over.
Yes. That's 12 hours
Here's hoping
wasted.
you found a way to make some some money while you were tinkering so that you can buy respecs.
It's just if this game was a tinkerer's game, then everything would be respectable constantly.
Yeah, and that's a hill I'll die on. Is the D3? I could respect anything at any time is just better than
Yep.
games that
Oh,
require
yeah.
you to make a choice and stick to it.
Yeah,
least
it
I
is not
agree.
interesting. Everyone always claims that, oh, but it's more interesting, and it's not. It's
It does
just
not lead to greater
frustrating.
build variety. It does not lead to no. It's just bad.
It
No,
reduces
what
your
it does,
it
it ensures
flatly
everybody.
reduces your build variety.
Yeah, it ensures everybody follows guides because they don't want to spend 12 hours experimenting with something that's maybe going to be garbage.
Yep.
They just want something that works.
Yep.
Yep.
No, it completely kills your build variety. And look, choices that matter in games are whether I decided to kill Rex, not what button I hit in this giant sprawling tree. What selection of Christmas lights in this giant thing. Those are not choices that are going to stick with me and make me think about the gaming as a medium and the decisions it's forced me to make.
Sure. I will say that like big sprawling things like this does like if I was able to do it more, it would be interesting from a like here's a big system that I can use to build an interesting character, and that's at least interesting. Like
In
that,
aggregate, it's interesting. Absolutely.
but it's not a choice that I want to be quote unquote meaningful in the sense that I can't change it.
Yeah, it's not a choice that makes me think of very much. Like, it doesn't make me contemplate my choices or the game, which is what a meaningful which is like the goal of a meaningful choice is make you really think about your choices and be like, ooh, but you're not thinking about it. I'm just following a guide. Somebody else did the thinking for me. I have offloaded that.
And it's punishing enough to have to re-roll that I just refuse to tinker in
Yep.
this game. Like D3, I can mess around with the build and find something that's a little better to my preferences, but here, no, it's too complicated, it's too much of a headache, and it's too much time to come back if I screw something up. So I just don't.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I moved really fast, and it still took me almost 3 days to get through the story and to get to maps. Like, that's a lot of commitment,
Yeah, and
considering how much I played.
Yeah, and it's not until then that you really know if your build is gonna work.
Right.
Like the story tells you nothing. Ability to successfully complete the story tells you nothing about whether your build is good.
yeah. And
Yes.
I refuse to not tinker, so I just deal with the fact that sometimes my characters just complete the story and that's all they ever do.
Yeah, last league I did not do maps because I got to like tier like the 4th level of maps and I just was dying all the time. And that was very frustrating and I was like, "Oh, well, I even followed a guide. And that wasn't enough. Like the guide I followed was either I wasn't following it properly or there was hidden information that I wasn't understanding properly. Don't quite understand why it didn't work, but it didn't work. I didn't have the right gear. Any number of things could have been the answer there.
I mean,
I did look at your guide. Your guide was not great.
Okay,
Because it did not mention any way to stay alive.
I
just sort of assumed that you were going to kill everything on every screen forever, and that's why you didn't need to stay alive. Because I think it was written way back before Arch Nemesis.
So I picked a bad guide. Even though I will point out that guide said updated for 3.19.
I know. But it also said to take the reservation mastery that was removed in 3.19.
So
they changed the number on it and nothing else.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, I guess what I'm getting at is like this game.
It's hard to know if you
evaluate that sort of thing. Yes.
And as somebody who was trying to do the right thing, like, oh man, this game feels incredibly hostile to somebody who really wants to play it.
Yeah. But who really wants to like delve into the systems and actually, play with them. Like
I would love to, but I don't think that's
to.
ever going to be possible.
Yeah, I don't like. I would be willing to spend the time to, get a character up and then fiddle around with things if I could respec things and move things around.
Oh, sure.
I
Sure,
don't
sure,
have
sure.
the time to run up character after character after character to try different things.
Oh,
Oh man,
absolutely.
if I could,
No.
if the only permanent character choice that I made was my class at the very start, I would be tinkering endlessly with this game.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I would try a different build every map.
Well, and the other piece of it is that with the leagues, it means that things are changing just enough each time that even if I spent some time tinkering and found something that I liked, there's no guarantee. It's actually incredibly unlikely that it will work exactly the same way by the time the next league rolls around,
Yeah.
which also makes me less inclined to tinker.
And the thing that feels really bad is like the days ahead of this league launch, I was playing the game of, okay, who do I trust? Like, which external source of information do I trust to get me through this league? Not knowing much about any of them. Who do I trust? Like, who am I going to gamble on?
Yeah.
And I mean, in the end, it's silly because this game is great once you contort yourself through the process of
Yeah.
figuring it out.
Yeah,
It's
once
a fun game.
fantastic.
once you understand it, it's like super fun. And like honestly, I learned enough picking a character, a pair of characters really, and homebrewing them myself without using a guide and like failing, but I learned enough from the failure that I was like, okay, now I know what to look for in a guide. Now I know what to do here. But it was really just like I sacrificed 2 whole characters to a league and was like, and got to something that I was like, okay, I see how this would be good or could be good, even if it isn't now. And now I understand the kinds of things I need to select for other later builds and so on. But like,
Yeah. I mean, like, I can now read the tea leaves by looking at a POB and see, are they investing any effort in defenses? Like, are they spending anything in defenses? Because if they're not, I'm probably not going to like this build.
yeah.
And that doesn't just mean life nodes because everyone takes life nodes.
Right. No, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I have to be able to see some strategy that you are following.
Oh, so okay, so that's the thing. Great point. So if you're saying like high life builds are still not defensive enough, because like that was the pitch from my last build was it's a high
Oh.
life build.
That is not enough.
No.
Not
Well,
even
like,
close.
so you basically have to follow some path, like, and commit to it. So, like, either you are doing evasion trickery, or you are,
Which is
Doing-
likely if you're starting as a shadow.
yeah, or you're doing a thing that basically allows your energy shield to regen really fast, which means you basically have a second life bar. Or
Maybe that's your only life bar if you're taking chaos
Yeah.
inoculation.
yeah,
Mhm.
or you're a high life build, but you've invested in regen to where you're just eating the points of damage and you're healing it back faster than you can do anything. And those are usually pretty obvious if they've gone super hard into life tap on everything. That means you no longer have mana, you just have your life.
Which does seem to be what this seismic trap build is doing.
It also wants to do another thing later, but that's later. Like, it wants to also, life is important, evasion is important. I'm pretty sure it's running Grace, suggesting running Grace. It also eventually wants Eldritch Battery, which actually moves your energy shield from your life to your mana, so you can reserve your entire mana bar and use your energy shield to cast abilities.
But just simply the fact that you can do things like that in this game is wild. It's like it's unbelievable that you can do that sort of stuff. Like, just the fact that I've got a build that I literally light myself on fire and then immolate people with it. Like, that's nonsense to me. But like, all of these, I don't know, a good build has some strategy of how to keep you alive but also kill things.
Yeah. And don't get hit is not a good enough strategy.
Right, like dodge all the things. Like, you can tell the people that build those kind of builds are probably bossers, because that's how you play against bosses. Like, you're supposed to not get hit by the bosses. But like mapping, you're going to get hit. You need to be able to shrug those off so you can move through the maps quickly.
I'm now curious. What's the like? Don't maps have bosses at the end?
Yeah, but maps have like puny bosses at the end. Like,
so are there
like-
other things that have? Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
there's things called Uber bosses or the
Pinnacle
Ubers.
bosses is the term usually used.
Yeah, and they're basically like, I
and
don't
you don't
know.
have to do a map to get to them.
You get an
You-
invitation.
You have to do stuff in maps to get to them, but
Yeah, you have to do a lot of maps to get to them in the first place.
Or you just make enough currency killing nothing but bosses that you just buy invitations off other players.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's a lot of what happens is people will specialize a build towards a specific kind of gameplay and then don't do a great job of communicating what they specialize their build for. Like,
Well,
a lot of the
so
game
that-
is based on not necessarily farming everything yourself.
We're good at a thing, and we'll be good enough at that one thing that everything we're bad at, we can just pay people to be good at for
Yep.
us.
Yep, exactly.
or even then, we're not that bad at the other things. We can still do them.
Yeah, just not as efficiently as if we specialized for it.
Yeah, because you still need to like do 115 maps, even as a bosser.
You do still kind of need to clear the atlas.
But also, like, in a lot of cases, these are also people that are like, that think nothing of being like, yeah, don't actually spend any points on your witch until, or on your, ascendant for the first 40 levels, because you need to do this and this to jump tracks.
What?
Absolutely a thing. That's just like, yeah, you're taking these 6 passives, and that's going to get you to level 40. And like,
I'm terrified.
that's where the build guide stops telling you about how to level.
I'm terrified by whatever you have uncovered here. Like,
Oh,
that's a level to which I would not be willing to go.
Reasonably, because it's unreasonable.
Yeah, no. For this season, I listened to Bell and Ash and thought, hey, that sounds like a really good idea. And I looked for a guide that was labeled as hardcore self-found
Yup.
because
If
those
you're
people,
playing on those, yeah.
because that is a guide for a character that needs to never ever die ever and can't just buy stuff on the marketplace.
Right.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I didn't think
Yeah.
about that.
Yup.
And so I've got a build that is pretty tanky and will be tankier before I'm done. And there is it would like exactly one unique, and that is a unique that drops off of a particular boss fairly commonly once you can kill it.
Yeah, okay. The Mines build similarly wants one unique. It is target farmable off of the boss of Betrayal.
But yeah, it's like I'm not killing stuff quite as quickly as I did in the last season with my just absurd amount of lightning spewing out forth all over the map. But I'm also pretty much unkillable. It does not happen much. Like I have stood in things that would have killed my last character for, long enough to realize, oh, my life is starting to go down. I guess I should move.
I beat the story when I first actually beat the story. I beat the story without knowing anything about resistances,
Oh
Ugh.
my.
which
I am having a lot more fun this go around because I'm not paying any attention to the story.
I actually think this game has a pretty reasonable story.
Yeah, like
The story's not bad, but
like I forget what her name is, but there's a YouTuber that's done a whole series digging into the lore behind the story, and it's like she goes basically an act at a time, and it's really kind of cool. Like shockingly, most ARPG stories are just not good at all, and this one,
I mean, let's be clear.
surprisingly good.
This one is significantly better than the average, which does not make it great, but I do find it compelling in some ways.
like it's got some interesting stuff going on. It is a story where at the end, like there is maybe hope that maybe the world can start to become a better place now. Now
Well,
that
and,
we've
like-
murdered just everything.
The thing that I love is there's significant differences that happen between, so basically the first 5 acts and the second 5 acts are repeats of the same areas,
You're going
more
through
or
the
less.
same zones, effectively.
Yeah, the second 5 acts is all of the characters that you got to know and enjoy from the first ones becoming bosses for you to kill.
Or just
I
dying.
feel like that's
or
not
getting
entirely
killed.
true because only the characters that I hate became bosses.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some of them get killed by the bosses that you then kill.
That's fair.
And it's all your fault.
Yes.
But the thing that I think is so cool though is like all of the visual differences in the zones are there for a reason. Like it makes sense. Even the giant waterfall of blood totally makes sense.
Yep, you did that.
You
Good
did
job.
that.
Good job
Act-
breaking it, hero.
Look at those little gems floating in the river.
Act 9 is also the most different, probably because Act 4 was a thing.
I don't know. Like I am easily having my best time this time around. And I do attributed it all to the fact that Pox is a really good guide builder.
He wrote a freaking wiki about one build.
He has a web page that just has endless resources on this one build.
All right.
It's kind of horrifying though that is the level of information you kind of need to have a good build
For
guide.
one build, yeah.
Yeah, for one build.
Yeah. I mean, like it shows, like it is very clear of what I need to be doing at any given time. Now, that's not to say that this build doesn't change things up at several points. Like when you start to encounter problems, probably time to shift up your build. Maybe spend some of the money that you've gotten to get some slightly better items.
That is another place where he's like, hey, if you're in SSF, here's how you start to craft some of these things.
Right. But some of the crafting is nonsense.
It's true, but crafting in this game is nonsense.
Like I don't have the Eldritch whatevers yet to put on my gloves to give them exposure so that I can drop something that's exposing mobs for my build and do something else with it. And
Oh, indirectly related. I found an item today with a defense type that I have never seen before.
Is it Ward?
It is Ward.
Ward is interesting, and almost all uses of it in builds are degenerate.
Apparently it like absorbs damage up to its amount and then
It basically
resets.
absorbs a hit of damage up to a certain amount, and then
Yeah.
resets.
So kind of like block, but not.
right. Leech is also weird.
Leech has its own problems, and they should change how it works. Like
Yeah.
straight
Yes.
up, absolutely, just straight up.
Yeah, because what works with Leech and what doesn't work with Leech is very
Not
confusing.
Not even that. Just the mechanics behind the scenes of how it works, even when you're using something that works with Leech. It's awful. It is terrible. They should change it.
I do feel like it should be a lot clearer what things are affecting things that you're doing.
I
Probably
feel like
so.
at this point, I have a good understanding of that, but I don't disagree.
I don't think they spend enough time explaining that, like, no, you shouldn't really be trying to stack evasion and armor and energy shield.
Yeah, normally pick 2.
What do you mean? Why not?
Because you will never have enough of any of them to actually matter if you're not more focused on a single one or one or two of them.
Yeah, because basically the way all the defenses work, each
The
point
more you
is-
have, the better
Yeah.
it is.
each point is better than the last. That is why you want your elemental resistances capped. If you pick up nodes that give you like an additional 1 or 2% to your cap on an elemental resist, that's better than you might think, because those 1 or 2 points are extremely good. So yeah, if you've got, if your evasion percent is like 50% and your armor is blocking 50% of damage you took, well, you're gonna die.
The evasion cap is 95%.
Yeah, you want to
And
get
because
as
of how
close
this
to that
game
as you
rolls
can.
things, it does mean you will not be hit twice in a row if you have 95% evasion.
Yeah, only the first roll is random, and then it just starts like adding a number to that roll for each subsequent hit until one of them hits you. So if you have 95% evasion, every 20th hit will hit you.
That's bonkers.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a game that figured out how to make evasion tanking good.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, if
this
you're
game gives me headaches.
yeah, but so
I like
so,
the puzzle that this game represents, but it needs to maybe explain some things a little more.
It does. That's totally not how I would have thought evasion worked.
Me
No,
either.
evasion is
No.
good.
It's very good. My build is evasion and energy shield with some nodes that cause the two to feed into each other, and enough armor that those hits that every so often hit that does come through evasion doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're used to playing games where you want to balance between avoidance and mitigation. And this game really wants you to go down a strategy and, like, really commit to it. Because any one of the strategies is, like, if you go super hard into it, is enough to keep you alive.
I mean, with evasion, you do need to be able to deal with that 20th hit.
Right. Yeah, you need
But
enough life to soak. And life is only really a defense if you're also stacking regen.
Or like if you've got 95% evasion and then you have, maxed block, well, by the time you get hit, by the time another hit comes through, your block is probably reset.
Yep.
I mean, that's another thing on this build that I'm running is its ultimate goal is maximum spell suppression, maximum spell block, and maximum block chance. It is
I'm
doing
surprised
this.
spell block and spell suppression. Most
I
people go
know.
one or the other.
Yeah, but it is doing this by taking the node that gives you a lot more spell block and regular block, but you now take 65% of that damage.
Right. Which is a good node to take if you have other ways of handling the damage you're going to take.
Yeah, it's a good
That node
trade-off.
technically increases the damage you take unless you have, like, say, recovery on block, which you can get.
Mhm.
But yeah, I spent some time last league putting together an Armageddon brand build to see if I could figure out how a build worked on my own. And that was moderately successful.
Yeah, I would describe my ridiculous nonsense from last league as moderately successful.
I will say the passive tree for maps is way more user-friendly than the passive tree for builds. It's mostly, what would you like to see more of?
They also tweaked it this league to make it more of that.
Yeah.
And also, is
Rather
there something you just absolutely hate? Make it go away.
I don't ever need to see Metamorph on my map again.
Exactly.
Metamorph isn't as bad as I originally thought it was.
I'm sure
And-
after the removal of Arch Nemesis, it has gotten significantly less terrible. But I'm
Right,
sure it is
like-
also still terrible.
Like, you can't go down the left side for everyone. That is going
Yeah,
to produce something that is unkillable.
Yeah, you will die.
But you can absolutely pick 2 or 3 of those leftmost options and get some cool stuff, but also probably want to pick some wide options that are just baseline.
I mean, you just fill up the bar as much as you are comfortable with. I like to fill up the bar, and kill the thing.
Me too.
Again, I do not need to see another Metamorph on my map if I can help it. And I can help it. There's
That's
literally a
the
thing that
part
says
about
never
it.
see this again.
So that's part about it is you can do the stuff that you like.
I like this league with this build. There's not a mechanic that I dread. I'm actually enjoying Incursion.
Incursion was great when I had the Cyclone build, so I can believe this.
Right, yeah, like, I mean, it's stressful when I specifically want to open a door to link
I mean,
up the
sure.
map, but I've created 3 temples that have all rooms open now, so, like, I guess I'm successfully doing it. I don't think they're as rewarding as they probably should be for spending that amount of time
They get pretty
curating your way
rewarding.
through a temple.
There can be some ridiculous items that come out of the temple.
There can be,
Yes.
but, like, it's not as consistent as I would love it to be. And I
The
and
league
probably
mechanic
if-
I think I want to get more acquainted with this time is Betrayal, which I just sort of skipped that last time.
I have figured out Betrayal. Yeah, like
Betrayal's
Betrayal is good. It is
Betrayal
a good
is a route
source
to a
of
bunch
gear.
of unique things you can't get in other places in the game.
Mhm.
Right. Like I kept trying to make sense of the larger board game of Betrayal.
Yeah.
But like, no, I just need to know I want the strongest person to be around last so that I can bargain with them and get the best loot. Like, that's all I need to know. Like, that's good enough for me. And also, I did not realize that I should have been unveiling literally everything I came across.
Oh,
That
yes.
one I didn't know.
Because you learn
So-
those recipes.
Yeah, I want the recipes. Like, I don't care about the items as much as I care about unlocking those recipes permanently.
Yep, because those are
Yes.
good.
Because, like, I had just mostly checked out of Betrayal because, like, I don't know what
I
those
don't
red
understand
strings
this
are.
board. Yeah.
I love that board. I love that mechanic.
I mean, happily, there is a person who every patch puts together a little like image of
what
all,
everybody does.
yeah, of all the people and what they'll get you and which ones are probably the ones to go for. And I don't know, I just use that and you're like, okay, I'll try and promote these people.
I mean, like,
If
I think it's leading to something at some point.
Oh yeah,
It's leading to a boss fight, which is how you
yeah.
farm a specific item that I want on the Trapper build.
Yep, I fought that boss one time last league. She's fun, and she has some she has some interesting gear, and then you get a whole lot of additional rewards based on like who was in charge of stuff.
But
basically,
it can also be totally played for short-term rewards too.
Yeah,
and it's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get the recipes and stuff just from killing the dudes out in the world. And then eventually you fill up one of the intelligence things enough and you get to go to a strong house and get better loot. And then ultimately you get to go kill the big boss in a cemetery. Because of course she's in a cemetery.
Master of Undeath.
Breach and Legion are two mechanics that I like a lot this go round.
I didn't particularly like Legion last time.
You have to do a lot of damage to a lot of things, really, to make it worthwhile. You really have to just bounce around and I spread fire traps all over the place and try and damage everything so that I can kill it once it unfreezes. Abyss I liked last time, and I still love Abyss.
I think that's still my favorite.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the single best one. And I love it when I get to go to Abyss Land. I was trying to explain the game to somebody earlier. Admittedly, somebody else said, you shouldn't probably play this. And I was going down the rabbit hole of okay, so you're going to follow this fisher and it's going to continue to spawn things. And you have to go quick enough to kill stuff while you're following it. And sometimes you get to go to another world.
Anyhow, there have been a number of other games that come out relatively recently.
It's that season.
Yep.
We'll probably hear about a bunch of them because I think that many are unequivocally good. But since it may be a bit before we have a normal show.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically looking at 2 weeks off then our Games of the Year show, which usually spans 2 weeks. So it's going to be weird for a little bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing interesting happens the next month.
Cough, cough. This is gonna be when Silksong drops.
But game that I've been playing and have gotten Bell into that I feel like shouldn't be as good as it is. It's one of those solid 7.5 games that we've talked about.
Yeah.
High on Life is Metroid Prime with a sense of humor.
Right. It is so dumb that it's amazing if you're willing to accept its dumbness. Basically, if you can stand the Rick and Morty comedic style, then this game is fine for you.
Is it an open world then?
Is it what?
It's open world then?
Sort of.
It's a Metroidvania, Metroid Prime was.
Yeah, so you have a map that you can constantly backtrack through.
Yes.
Okay.
You have a map that you can constantly backtrack through. You move through this game. Originally I was like, this is a pretty mediocre shooter. And I realized that it's really not about that. It's a game about
traversal more than anything.
Yeah, it's a game about traversal, which I mean definitely gets votes from me because I love that. And you unlock more traversal when you get new guns. The secondary fire on all of your guns is generally a traversal mechanic in some form. And so there's a lot of oh, I got a new gun. I can do particular things with it, and also it lets me get around. And every gun is a character because the gun this is a very Saturday morning cartoon alien game and plot line.
It's very Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah. It's a game that is styled like games of the 90s were aliens have come to Earth, fight them all off and save the Earth. And it knows what it's about, so it's really leaning into these 90s game tropes a lot. But also it's sort of like it's delightful because it knows how dumb it is and doesn't pretend to be anything but what it is, and I respect that.
Like it even starts with like a big nod to Duke Nukem 3D. Well, it's like a combo of a nod to Duke Nukem 2 and Duke Nukem 3D. Because like
Yeah,
the intro
liked one
is
of those
very
games.
Duke Nukem 2.
And like it's really important to remember that Duke Nukem Forever was terrible.
Oh, it was awful.
Yes.
But Duke Nukem the series was real important.
Yeah.
It was very good when it was relevant. And it wasn't it was really good when it was relevant, and it did not have the reputation that it developed because it was just really, really, really solid.
I don't think we would have gotten as many story shooters as we had were it not for Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah.
Because like Doom didn't really tell a story.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Duke Nukem, that kind of introduced, that was the first shooter where the protagonist actually had a personality. Doom guy had no personality. Wolfenstein guy had no personality.
Murder was their personality.
Yeah. But Duke, like you would interact with things and he would talk.
Mhm.
He would get to places and he would say things. And, and they were incredibly dumb things.
But
I made Duke Nukem P.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so High on Life, you have a kind of anxious, stammery gun. All of your guns have personalities. They're all like, because we're talking Saturday morning cartoon aliens, the guns are all from the planet Gatlia.
Yeah.
They are Gatlians. Like, there's a bit of a meta story about something terrible happened to their homeworld and a lot of them got enslaved.
Like the aliens that are coming to seize the Earth are turning humans into drugs.
It's
Yeah.
the title.
Yes. But there's like a whole subplot of like, hey, it's actually really messed up to make, like, what if you had a bunch of different sentient creatures and some people thought sentient creatures were delicious? And like, we're not talking highbrow here, but it's got a story, and it's legitimately made me laugh a lot a few times.
And it's hilarious is like Tam and I have taken very different options and we've had conversations about those different options. Like there's an annoying kid that stops you from progressing. And like I tried to shoot him and the gun told me not to. Then I tried to shoot him again and the gun's like, I guess it's your life. So I killed the kid. Then I found the mother. And the mother told me that the kid was 30 years old, which technically like means he's an adolescent, but like you did just a normal murder. You didn't do a kid murder.
Wow.
I did see that mentioned in a preview.
Yeah. You get the achievement. Fallout doesn't let you do this.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's just a straight take on the Fallout thing from forever ago.
3 was the one where that was most notable.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to remember if there were. I feel like Fallout 1 there just weren't any kids. Fallout 2 had kids and you couldn't kill them.
Right.
Yeah.
When you first get the knife, which is basically also a hook shot, the knife really wants you to plunge it into its former owner.
Yeah, the knife hates its former owner, wants you to stab him.
And you can do it. You can
And you can
absolutely
do it.
stab.
And the owner is like, man, what was that about? Like, you don't have to do everything the UI tells you.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
Like, it's incredibly, like, I'm not gonna, like, it's dumb humor, but sometimes dumb humor is just what I wanted, and it's pretty funny.
Well, like what are the first people that you end up fighting is like, oh yeah, they put the really strong people at the beginning of these games, don't they? Yeah, we're really strong.
Yeah, I bet we're some of the strongest people in this game. And then like, oh no, we're definitely not. Run.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like I still agree with Tam's earliest assessment that basically like this is going to be a game that most people either really find funny or bounce off immediately.
Yes. I don't think there is any in between.
I don't think this is the kind of game that grows on you.
I mean, I'm gonna probably end up checking this out just because there's kind of a dearth of 3D Metroidvanias. Like Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime, what is it? Isn't coming out anytime soon.
Yeah, like
Someday.
it's not. It's definitely it is a kind of game that I don't see very often. It feels like Metroid Prime meets Borderlands as written by the Rick and Morty staff.
Yeah. I mean, like, and honestly, like, I was super disappointed in Metroid Dread. So, like, I'm okay with other people doing Metroids. I never played Metroid and thought, oh, hey, this would be better with Nemesis chasing me.
Yeah, I do think that the just play on story mode. There's no real reason to play on anything other than story mode, I think. Like there's not a lot of enemy variety or like enemy behavior variety. Like the bosses are cool, but there's not a lot of enemy variety and you don't need that to be harder for no reason.
Well, and the thing that makes the boss fights cool is more the traversal elements than a lot of the other elements of the fight.
But it definitely wants you to play with all of the stupid things that you have available. And honestly, it's kind of fun playing with the stupid things you have available. And the writing is from whatever the opposite of the Joss Whedon school of snappy dialogue. Like,
I mean, it's Justin Roiland. Like, if you've ever watched anything from him, it is his exact style. Like, it's the same thing. He's done in literally everything.
Yeah, like there's this type of dialogue where on one end of the spectrum you have the like super Whedon-esque, everybody is turbo witty and has like the perfectly timed comeback at every moment, and all of the dialogue is like super tight and super snappy. And on the other hand, you have like the Roiland style, which is like half of the time it is amazing these people even got this sentence out. And honestly, both can be funny. I'm surprised I like this game, but it has made me laugh a few times. Don't play it around your kids.
Yeah,
I imagine not.
No, just definitely not. Especially if your kids hear words and say the words they hear, like kids do. Just don't do that. But yeah, solid 7.5. I'm in a month I will have forgotten it, but for the time being, I am having a good time.
That's probably a show. I know we got started a little later than normal, but I think we are now over.
Sounds good.
Any final thoughts? Since it will be a bit before we see people again.
Chained Echo seems really cool, and it's going to be a long time before we get to talk about it.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and hopefully you all have a good holiday sequence.
We'll be back next year.
Yeah.
We'll see you next year. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.